My name is Else Kragholm and I am the country director for Plan International in Zimbabwe. I'm here visiting Plan Australia and I am going to tell you a story about how people in Zimbabwe transformed their life with support from Plan Australia and the Australian government. Plan International was founded more than 70 years ago, and Plan is one of the oldest and largest children's development organizations in the world and has no political and religious agenda. Plan works at the grassroots level in more than 50 developing countries to empower communities to overcome poverty so that children have the opportunity to reach their full potential. And children are encouraged to be actively involved in the process in their communities. We unite and empower and inspire people around the globe to champion every child's right to survival, develop to the fullest, be protected, and participate fully in family, cultural, and social life. Together with our sponsors, we can transform the world for and with children. The story I'm going to tell is from Zimbabwe. And it is about how people in 3 different districts in the southern part of Zimbabwe transformed their lives with support from Plan. In 2007, 2008, 2009, Zimbabwe had a sort of economic crisis. They had hyperinflation and the economy didn't go well for anybody in the country. People were poor. At a certain point of time, World Food Programme actually distributed food to more than 6 million people. We decided to address that issue together with the farmers in 200 villages in Tireche, Chipinge and Mwanezi district, by working closely together with them to find out how they would like to address the issue of being family food secure, or in other words, how could they organize themselves to produce enough so they could provide for their families, their children, and help their community at large. One of the key issues for all those people was that the crops they traditionally have learned to grow during the colonial time were not really suitable for the soil and the rain pattern in the community. It was maize. When they started to sow and harvest maize, there was very little output. And they didn't have the money for fertilizer, they didn't have the money for irrigation. So they needed to go back and look at what did they survive many thousand years before that the colonial people came to Zimbabwe and started to introduce the maize. And that was another crop called sorghum, and that crop would grow well in that soil. It didn't need a lot of rain, and also it would be absolutely a more healthy crop. So we started to talk to the communities if they wanted to change to that crop. Of course, there was a lot of resistance, and the crop is more hard to grow. It's difficult to grind compared to maize, but it is more healthy. So the women and the farmers decided to grow sorghum, and the first thing we did was to let the farmers decide who could be the lead farmers to actually also produce sorghum seeds, because they needed a new variety of seeds to make the farming productive. What you see on the picture now is those farmers who decided to participate with those very healthy crops of sorghum. That field you see now is farmers who are doing seed multiplication. That means that they focus on getting some really, with support from Plan obviously, but they get some really good seeds and then they plant them and they grow them and they weed them and they do the right thing. And then there come a good harvest. 1 hectare can give seeds which is worth $1,700, which is quite an encouragement for a lead farmer to be allowed to do that. Another thing we actually did also to complement the family's food was to encourage the farmers to establish vegetable garden. Needs a little water, a well they can dig themselves, but in that garden they can grow tomatoes, cabbage, onion, garlic, and a number of other local vegetables, which add a lot of nutrition value to the families. And traditionally, people for a long time have avoided to eat the nutrition food because it was sort of saying, okay, if we just have maize, we are okay. But maize is not very nutritious in the way they were eating it. And we saw children being malnourished, and we see children going tired to school, children not growing as they should. So the nutrition gardens were very important for the children and for the families. And of course, a mother and a woman will be very happy to give her family nutritious food every day. And it's clear that those nutrition gardens are very, very popular. One other thing is that they could produce some surplus. So they could sell their tomatoes and their onions and their cabbage to people who didn't have a nutrition garden. And by this also generate a cash income for the family. One of the things which were very important for all the thousands and thousands of farmers who now wanted to participate was to actually be able to buy the seeds which the lead farmers had produced. So Plan, together with the communities, decided to develop what we call the Community Technology Seed Fair. It's just in September, before the rainy season. The farmers come together. They now sell the seeds, and other agricultural companies and seed companies also come and offer their products. And because people are starting to have a little money they can buy, or they can share, or they can barter with each other. The fact is that at those seed fairs, a lot of families had an opportunity to buy the good seeds. And Plan also, with support from Plan Australia, identified the most vulnerable families, the families with a lot of orphans, the grandmothers with taking care of their grandchildren, people living with HIV/AIDS, people who were a bit more vulnerable than the other community members. So we gave them a voucher of value of $35 US, where they could buy seeds so they could go home and plant on their land. And that has worked very well, because that little support, very little support, actually encouraged them to go and learn from the other farmers, see how they did it, and then also were able to aim for family food security. Another thing the farmers also have worked together with Plan to do is to learn how to plant more effectively. Because it's very dry land, there's very little rain, there is a lot of things which can go wrong. So if we do what we call conservation farming, where we actually take care of each plant in each hole we dig, so the moisture and the rain and the fertilizer or the compost around that plant will support that plant to grow up and deliver a good harvest, then the farmers will get more out of it, and we will also take better care of the soil. So that's one of the things the farmers in this program is also learning. A lot of the farmers are women. And how so? In this area, a lot of the men have gone to South Africa to see if they can find a job. Unfortunately, many of them find another wife in South Africa and may not return. So we have a lot of family or female-headed household or women who head a household. They have to take care of everything. They are the breadwinners, and they are also the ones who raise the children and take care of the extended family. Traditionally, women have not had a lot of say and had a big voice in the family or in the community. But in this program, we started to discuss with the communities and with the women and with the men there and the traditional leaders, can we not find a way where everybody can have an equal voice in how to develop this community? That's, of course, always have some resistance again, but because the women started to grow successfully crops, they started to earn money, they also started to earn the right to have a voice. In the Western world, we call it gender equality. In a community in Zimbabwe, we will call it that everybody is now participating more equally. And we are not calling it gender or those fine words, because that's not how people see it. But the women certainly became more confident. They started to dare to say their opinions. They started to also be demanding that they were respected for being women and not just wives or whatever they could be seen as. And that also had a very positive impact on the children, because suddenly when the women had a voice in the community, you know, the children also got the opportunity to say their opinion, because women wanted to hear what their children, the mothers wanted to hear what their children said, and we have seen a much higher level of child participation, and the children were also much more now interested to help their mothers and their families to grow the crops and to work in the vegetable gardens, because they could see there was something which came out of all this which were positive for everybody. And of course, if you go to a community meeting in such a community, we see women now stand up and come up with a lot of suggestions how they can improve their agricultural output, how they can improve their community, how they can better take care of the weak in the community, how they can better take care of the community. And of course, we make sure that in those meetings there are very solid discussion about child protection, so that children are not abused, and what is child abuse and how can we avoid it, and how we respect boys and girls equally, and how the young people can be involved in productive activities in communities, and also why education is an important part of developing a community, and the parents or the mothers or the adults, they need to ensure that the children go to school and they finish the school, and they have to value that they have to earn also money to pay the school fees so they can raise their children to be educated. In the program, we also work together with the government of Zimbabwe, who out at the district level have all their line ministries represented. And most of those are young graduates, people who have got an education. And especially in this particular program, we work together with what we call the government extension agricultural workers. They are the local experts. Plan is not an expert in agriculture, but the government has those experts, and we work together with them. And they are the ones who also come out and train the farmers in the specific technical expertise, in the technical work which they need to do in order to have a successful crop. So those young people employed by the government, and a government which doesn't have a lot of resources to do many programs, they are very happy to work together with the communities. They're very happy to work together with Plan, because the approach is participatory, it's constructive, and it is aiming to change the life for the better for many, many people. So we have a very good relationship with those extension workers, and they are actually, many of them, very energetic. I met recently an extension worker who had worked with one of the groups to develop one of those nutrition gardens, and he went around and talked to women in a number of other villages, even not covered by this program, and they decided to also do the nutrition garden with their own resources. And he was just so proud, because he said last month we could open up 11 new nutrition gardens, which we learned from this program, but now it's spreading to the wider areas in the districts, which is very positive, because the government then can use the good example done together with Plan to also influence a good development in other communities which are not covered. When the families have started to grow enough sorghum which they can eat, and there is a little surplus, they start to invest in additionally livelihood security. One of the first things they do is to buy chickens. There is not one African who doesn't love a good chicken. This is what you eat when you are happy or when you celebrate, and this is a luxury for many people. But for those farmers to be able to have that surplus, they could buy some chickens, and chicken grows fast, and there is eggs, and there is meat, there is nutrition, and there is also a surplus, so you can sell chicken to other people. It's a very positive driver for livelihood and for family food security. And when they then have enough chicken, you can be able to sell them and buy a goat. And when you have then produced a number of goats and can sell those goats, you can buy a cow. And for an African family, the cow is the most important animal, because if you have a wedding, there has to be some exchange of cows. No matter what we think about it, that's the tradition, and we have to respect of that. Plus, the cows are very good security. If there is a shock or a disaster or a serious sickness in a family, they sell the cow and raise the money to save the life of either parents or a child or adults. It's a very important family security to have a cow. The children, of course, are participating, and for them, the thing to have chicken and understand that how you grow a family economy is very important learning also. So we make sure that the families involve them, and at this picture here, you can see how the children are in the market and also selling the chickens to the general public. In Plan, we have sponsors, and many will have heard about you can sponsor a child in Africa, and the money from which an Australian sponsor pay will go to a child and that child's community. And in Plan, we are talking about a sponsorship promise. And so when you are a sponsor, we will promise you that we will do our very best that the child gets an education, because with a vision to realize the full potential of all children, it is not possible to realize that full potential if that child is not in school. Of course, in Zimbabwe, where the government have very serious economic challenges, all families will have to pay a certain amount of school fee, and where the most disadvantaged families cannot do it and have a child which are sponsored, plan goes in and help with that. We are also making sure that the child is healthy. That means that if the child is really sick and needs specialist treatment, plan will have funding for that. We also make sure, and that's probably the most important thing for a child, that the child learn about his and her rights. The right to education, the right to a healthy life, the right to play, and the right to have a voice and in their community. So a lot of plans, activities with the children are surrounded around giving them an opportunity to learn about their rights, to play and to participate. And that's probably, if you think about a child in Africa, if he or she can learn that, we have given them a good start in life. One of the additional things which came out of the livelihood projects, growing sorghum, growing vegetables, getting chicken, getting a goat, is that the family is starting to have a small income. And in order to maximize that income, the women and the people in the communities, they started to organize themselves in what we call saving groups. That means they come together, 10 people, they agree that they would help each other to raise capital for each their different needs. And then they come together once a week or once a month and pay maybe $10 into a pool. They decide how much interest there is. The interest will go back to themselves. They also decide how much you can borrow from that pool and how you're going to pay it back. And that has had a very positive impact. Families have, or women have been able to upgrade their house. They have been able to pay secondary school fees. They have been able to invest in a small business. They have been able to invest maybe in a couple of cows. They have been able to invest in a number of things which they really wanted. During the hard times they lived in from 2006, 7, 8, 9, most of the family lost all their assets. They had to sell if they had a bicycle, if they had a radio, if they had a bed, if they had chairs. They had to sell it all in order to just have food enough. So with this, the village saving and lending groups and that economy, they now can start to develop together. They are now starting to buy assets again so that they can bring their life back to normal and to what they also consider a good life, where you have a bed and you have a chair and maybe a bicycle and maybe a radio and definitely a mobile phone.